You ever get nervous speaking in English? Like, in front of people?
Totally.
Yeah.
Happens to the best of us. It's completely natural. It's interesting though, right? You've sent over some really fascinating stuff about this. Articles, workshop notes, even analysis of great speeches. I mean, pretty diverse stuff.
Yeah, it's something that comes up all the time from our listeners, so we thought it would be really helpful to kind of dive into it. Public speaking is one of those things that, no matter what you do, at some point you're probably going to have to do it right.
Right. Whether it's a work presentation, job interview, or even just sharing your thoughts confidently in a meeting, it's a skill that's just so universally valuable.
Definitely. So let's get down to it. What are some of the big things that kind of jump out at you from all this material? Where should people focus their energy if they really want to see some improvement?
Well, one thing that just keeps popping up is the importance of preparation.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess that's probably a no-brainer, right?
It might seem obvious, but really knowing your material inside and out, that's huge. When you're confident in what you're talking about, you can focus more on how you're presenting it, rather than just remembering the content.
It's like that saying, right? Practice makes perfect.
Exactly. And it's not just about the content itself. One of the articles you sent mentioned something really interesting about the environment, too.
Oh, yeah. Like, if you can, actually visiting the place where you'll be speaking ahead of time.
Precisely. It can make a world of difference. Knowing the layout, getting familiar with the tech, seeing the room, it helps reduce those surprise jitters on the day of.
It's one less thing to stress about. Okay, so we've got preparation, we've got getting to know the environment. What about the people you're actually talking to?
Oh, the audience. Super important. In fact, it's crucial to consider your audience's needs and expectations.
Like, what are they hoping to get out of your presentation?
Exactly. If you tailor your message to resonate with them directly, not only will they be more engaged, but you'll also feel more purposeful and confident in your delivery. It becomes less about you performing and more about creating a connection.
So it's a win-win. Okay, so we've got a solid foundation with preparation. We're mindful of the audience. What about the language we're using to get our message across?
Oh, well, clarity and simplicity are key. Just say what you mean in the most straightforward way possible.
Right. Don't get all bogged down in fancy vocabulary or complicated sentences.
Exactly. The goal is effective communication. You don't want to lose your audience with jargon or overly complex structures.
Agreed. So how do we bridge that gap between having a clear message and actually delivering it with confidence? I mean, that's often the hardest part, right?
Absolutely. And one of the most powerful tools for that is, you guessed it, practice.
Oh, there it is, practice. We knew it was coming.
But not just any practice. It needs to be deliberate and, importantly, out loud.
Out loud. Yeah, that's where I start to get a little hesitant, to be honest.
I know. It can feel a little weird at first, but trust me, it's so valuable. You can stand in front of a mirror, record yourself, even practice with a friend or colleague.
I think for me, the recording part is the most intimidating.
I get it. But when you hear yourself speak, you pick up on things you might not notice otherwise, like maybe you're rushing through certain parts, or your pronunciation of some key words could be clearer.
I guess it's like having another set of ears, objectively listening. What specific things should we be paying attention to when we're practicing like that?
Well, definitely your pacing. Are you speaking too quickly or too slowly? Are there natural places to pause for emphasis? Then, your body language. Are you fidgeting? Do your gestures feel natural? Or are you kind of stiff and uncomfortable? And of course, pronunciation, especially if there's any technical vocabulary or words you're not 100% sure about.
Makes sense. So it's not just about going through the motions, it's about being really intentional and paying attention to all those details.
Right. And don't forget about timing. Use a timer to make sure you're staying within any allotted time limits.
Yeah, that's a good one. I tend to get carried away sometimes. Are there any other tips or tricks for making the most of practice time?
Definitely. Some people find it helpful to create speech templates or outlines to structure their practice sessions.
Like breaking it down into smaller chunks instead of trying to tackle the whole thing at once.
Exactly. And you can even focus on different sections each time. You mentioned flashcards earlier. You know how you mix them up when you're studying? There's actually a technique called interleaved practice, where you practice different parts of your speech in random order.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it helps your brain make connections and retrieve the information more effectively when you need it. Kind of keeps you on your toes.
Like a mental workout for your speech. I like it. All right, so we're feeling good about our words, our pacing, our pronunciation. What about how we present ourselves physically while we're speaking?
Body language, it's huge. A good posture, natural hand gestures, confident eye contact, these all project confidence and help you connect with your audience.
I think we've all seen those speakers who are just kind of hunched over, avoiding eye contact. It's not very engaging, is it?
Not at all. It can actually undermine your message, even if your words are brilliant. On the flip side, a warm smile, looking at different people throughout the room, using your hands to emphasize points, these things create a much stronger connection.
It's like you're inviting people in, making them feel like a part of the conversation.
Exactly. And practice those gestures in front of the mirror, too. You want them to feel natural and purposeful, not distracting or awkward.
Got it. So we've got the visuals down. What about the sound of our voice? That can make a big difference in how people perceive our message, right?
Absolutely. It's called voice modulation, and it's super important. Nobody wants to listen to a monotone, no matter how interesting the topic is. You need to vary your tone, emphasize key words, and use your pitch to convey emotion.
It's about bringing your words to life, making them more dynamic and engaging.
Exactly. And one really powerful way to do that is through storytelling.
I love a good story.
Me too. And they're so effective for connecting with an audience. Whether it's a personal anecdote or a compelling example that illustrates your point, stories capture attention, simplify complex ideas, and make your message more relatable and memorable.
It's like sneaking in a little entertainment while you're delivering valuable information. But how do you make sure the story doesn't take over and distract from your main message?
Structure, structure, structure. Have a clear beginning, middle, and end. Make sure it's relevant and concise, and most importantly, that it has a clear takeaway that supports your main point.
So it's like the story is a tool to enhance your message, not a replacement for it. Okay, so we've talked about content, delivery, body language, even storytelling. What about the overall rhythm and flow of our speech?
Pacing is crucial. Speaking too quickly can make you sound nervous and hard to follow, while speaking too slowly can lose people's attention. You want to find that sweet spot, that comfortable rhythm that keeps your audience engaged.
It's all about balance, and I guess that's where practice and timing come in again, right?
Definitely. And speaking of timing, don't underestimate the power of pauses.
Pauses, like just being silent for a moment.
Exactly. A well-placed pause can give you time to gather your thoughts, allow the audience to process what you've just said, and even emphasize a particularly important point. Sometimes silence speaks volumes.
That's a great reminder. It's so easy to just rush through everything when you're nervous. All right, so we're cruising along, feeling confident and connected with our audience. How do we make sure we start and end our speech in a way that really sticks with them?
Think of your opening and closing as the bookends of your presentation. They frame everything in between. Your opening needs to grab their attention right from the start. Maybe start with a surprising statistic, a thought-provoking question, or a brief, engaging anecdote.
You've got to hook them in those first few moments.
Exactly. And then, just as important, you need a strong closing to leave a lasting impression. Summarize your key points, maybe offer a call to action, or end with a thought-provoking statement that leaves them with something to ponder.
Those are the things they'll remember later on. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the elephant in the room, nerves. I think everyone gets nervous before speaking in public, right? What are some things we can do in the moment to manage that anxiety?
Breathing exercises are a lifesaver.
Really, just breathing.
Seriously. Take a few slow, deep breaths before you start, and even during those pauses we talked about. It helps calm your nervous system and steady your voice.
It's amazing how such a simple thing can make such a difference. What about connecting with the audience while you're speaking? How can we make sure we're not just talking at them, but actually engaging with them on a personal level?
Eye contact is key. Make an effort to look at different people throughout the room, not just one or two individuals or, staring blankly at the back wall.
So make them feel seen. Make them feel like you're actually speaking to them.
Right. It builds trust and rapport and shows that you're confident and sincere. And then there's the dreaded Q&A.
Oh, yes. The Q&A, the part where you're put on the spot and have to think on your feet.
I know, it can be intimidating. But again, preparation is key. Try to anticipate potential questions and even rehearse some brief answers. And if someone asks you something you don't know the answer to, it's okay to admit that. You can offer to follow up later.
So it's not about knowing everything. It's about being honest and handling the situation gracefully.
Precisely. Something we haven't really touched on yet is the visual aspect, how you present yourself in terms of your attire.
Oh, you mean like what we're wearing? Does that really matter?
It can, actually. Dressing appropriately for the occasion can boost your confidence and make a positive impression on your audience.
So it's like dressing for success in a way. Makes you feel good. Makes them take you seriously.
All right, so we've given our speech, we've nailed it, hopefully. How do we continue to learn and improve for next time?
Feedback is your friend. Ask trusted friends, colleagues, or mentors for constructive criticism.
I know that can be hard to hear sometimes, but it's so valuable.
It really is. And don't forget about self-reflection. What did you feel went well? What could you have done differently? So it's not just about what other people tell us, it's about our own honest assessment of our performance.
Exactly. And remember those recordings we talked about for practice. Going back and listening to those can be really helpful too. You might pick up on little things you didn't notice in the moment, like maybe you tend to say a lot, or your posture could be improved.
It's like having an instant replay of your speech. Okay, so we've got all these strategies, but how do we actually build that inner confidence over time? I mean, that's the foundation for everything else, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of it comes down to mindset. Visualization can be a powerful tool.
Visualization.
Yeah, like before you speak, take some time to imagine yourself delivering a successful presentation. See yourself speaking clearly, connecting with the audience, feeling confident and in control.
So it's like a mental rehearsal.
Exactly. And it can really help reduce anxiety and prepare you for the real thing. Ultimately, confidence comes from preparation, practice, and believing in yourself. You've got this.
I love that. Okay, one last thing I have to ask about. What about mistakes? Everyone makes them, right? How do we handle those gracefully without letting them derail our whole speech?
We all mess up sometimes. It happens. If you stumble over your words or make a minor error, the best thing to do is just acknowledge it calmly and move on. Don't dwell on it or make a big deal out of it.
Like, just roll with it and keep going.
Exactly. Audiences are usually very forgiving, and honestly, how you handle a mistake can actually show your composure and build trust.
It's all about being human and not letting a little hiccup ruin the whole experience. Now, what about visual aids? They can be really helpful, but also sometimes a little bit tricky to get right.
Totally. Visuals like slides or charts can definitely enhance your presentation and help clarify complex information, but they should be used strategically, not as a crutch. Keep them clean, uncluttered, and relevant to your message.
So they should complement your speech, not overshadow it.
Right. And make sure you practice transitioning smoothly between your speech and your visuals. And always, always have a backup plan in case of technical difficulties.
Always good advice. Now, how about some final tips for really engaging with our audience and keeping their attention?
Well, you want to create a sense of connection right from the start. You can start with a question, a surprising fact, or a very brief, engaging story. Make eye contact with different people throughout the room, and if appropriate, invite questions or even brief interactions during your presentation. And, humor can be a great tool, but only if it's relevant and you're confident it will land well with your audience.
So it's about making it a two-way conversation as much as possible. All right, so many great tips. Any final thoughts on overcoming that initial wave of stage fright?
We've talked about a lot already, but visualization, deep breathing, and positive self-talk are all incredibly helpful. And try to channel that nervous energy into enthusiasm for your topic. Your passion will be contagious. Remember, it's okay to be nervous. It means you care.
That's a good way to look at it. It's not about eliminating the nerves. It's about using them to your advantage. And speaking of understanding our audience, that's so crucial for connecting with them on a meaningful level, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take the time to research your audience beforehand. Their background, their interests, their expectations. What are their pain points? What are they hoping to learn from you?
The more you know about them, the better you can tailor your message to resonate with them.
Right. And if you're speaking to a group with diverse cultural backgrounds, be mindful of any relevant cultural nuances. It shows respect and can make a huge difference in how your message is received.
It's all about being sensitive and aware. And as we've emphasized throughout this whole conversation, getting feedback is essential for continuous growth as a speaker.
Absolutely. Don't be shy about asking for constructive criticism. And really listen to what people have to say, both the positive and the areas for improvement. Every speaking engagement is a learning opportunity.
It's a journey, not a destination. Now, something we haven't specifically addressed is taking care of our voice itself. I mean, it's our instrument, right?
Such a good point. Stay hydrated by drinking plenty of water and try to avoid things like caffeine or sugary drinks that can irritate your throat. Warming up your voice with some gentle exercises before you speak can also help.
Like a singer doing vocal warm-ups. All right. As we wrap up here, I think it's important to emphasize that this whole process of becoming a more confident and effective speaker, it's about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. Celebrate your wins, no matter how small they might seem. And remember that confidence builds gradually with practice and experience.
It's a journey, and every step forward is something to be proud of. So just to recap some of the key takeaways for our listeners today.
We've talked about the power of preparation, the importance of knowing your audience, the need for clarity and simplicity in your language, and the absolute necessity of practice, practice, practice. We also delved into the impact of body language, the effectiveness of storytelling, the strategic use of pacing and pauses, and the importance of crafting strong openings and closings.
And of course, we talked about how to manage those inevitable nerves, handle questions effectively, and continuously seek feedback to learn and grow.
It's a lot to take in, but even focusing on one or two of these areas can make a big difference.
Absolutely. So, as you think about your next opportunity to speak in English, whether it's a formal presentation or just a casual conversation, ask yourself, how can I apply these strategies to become a more confident and impactful communicator?
It's all about taking those small steps and recognizing that every time you speak, you have a chance to learn and improve.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our discussion for today. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey of public speaking mastery.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep practicing and keep speaking your truth with confidence.
You got it.
We'll be back soon with more tips and insights to help you master everyday English.
See you then.